My name is Neil Patel, and I help companies generate more revenue through digital marketing. Entrepreneur Magazine said I was the #1 marketer in the world, and they also said I created one of the 100 most brilliant companies. I started my first website at the age of 16. I took all the money that I earned from working at an amusement park, and I paid a marketing firm. The marketing firm provided no results, and I quickly learned that I wasn't alone. Out of my frustration and from being broke, I had no choice but to learn marketing. My first client was a power supply manufacturer. I helped them generate another $25 million in sales, and from that point, I realized the power of marketing. I helped everyone that I could, and I built my reputation by being honest and over-delivering. I've helped companies like Google, NBC, Viacom, General Motors, eBay, but nothing's more satisfying than helping small business owners succeed. I founded 4 multi-million-dollar companies, and I've learned all the mistakes that you should avoid. I've written about them on Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc., Fast Company, and even on my own blogs. It's so awesome to know that colleges from all around the world are teaching my material in their classroom. Over the years, I've received awards from the President of the United States, the House of Representatives, and the United Nations. People believe marketing is expensive and difficult. Fortunately, that's not true. There is a formula. Even if you don't have a technical bone in your body, you can get results. And my mission is to share this formula with you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for coming today. Really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know people are from all over the world, so let's dive in and get started. Hopefully you guys can see the presentation. I'm on an iPad, so my camera's a little bit funny, but today we're going to be discussing SEO strategies that always work. So I'm Neil Patel. I'm the co-founder of NP Digital. We also have Matt with us, who's also from NP Digital. We also have Joe with us, who's from Digital Marketing Institute, who this webinar is with. So it's a combination of Digital Marketing Institute and us. Matt, do you want to give a quick introduction on yourself? And then Joe, you can do the same after.
Yeah, for sure. It's always a pleasure getting a chance to educate alongside of you, Neil, and also with DMI. I know we've done quite a bit of collaborations in the past. But yeah, I'm Matthew Santos. I'm the Senior Vice President of Products and Strategy at one of our divisions of NP Digital called Neil Patel Excel. We specialize in the small to medium business sector. Been in the space for over 11 years now, been with the Neil Patel Group for over 5.5. And very excited to be here today chatting about evergreen SEO strategies.
Go for it, Joe. Feel free to do an introduction on yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Williams. I'm a subject matter expert over at the digital marketing. Sorry, guys. It's just repeating a bit here. 1 second.
No problem.
Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. That's perfect. So yeah, my name's Joe Williams. I'm a subject matter expert at the Digital Marketing Institute. It is repeating.
We're not hearing the repeat on our end. I think it's just your end.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just try again. So yeah, my name's Joe Williams. I'm a subject matter expert over at the Digital Marketing Institute. I also run an SEO website at joewills.com, and I've been involved in SEO since 2006. So not quite as long as Neil, but I'm really passionate about SEO, and I'm looking forward to share some SEO strategies today.
Awesome. So NP Digital, we're a global ad agency. We have 1,000+ employees, won a lot of awards. I know I talk about this in every single webinar, but the only reason I bring it up is just keep in mind when today we're talking about strategies that always work, it's coming from a place of data and expertise versus just a gut feeling. So there's a new era of search and it's here. And you're probably wondering, what does this mean for SEO? Well, the big thing is the search are continually getting more complex and they're changing. For example, when you do a search these days, at least in the United States, you're going to see AI overviews at the top, and they've changed on how many queries they've been showing up for. At one point, it was a good chunk of them. Now it's somewhere around 15%. That was the last report that came out from, I believe it was Conductor. I think it was one of the SEO tools. No, Bright Edge. It was Bright Edge, the one based out of San Francisco. But according to Bright Edge, they were seeing somewhere around 15%. And you're seeing the SERPs constantly change, right? Whether it's that, they're also integrating a lot of other types of content. Like you're seeing much more short form content within the search results, like you would see on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, than you ever would see before. You're also seeing a lot of results from forums, community sites like Quora, Reddit, etc. But the SERPs are not only continually changing, they're also getting more complex, which of course affects SEO. And what does the future look like? They say 50+% of the searches on Google are resulting in no clicks, and that was in 2022. SparkToro put a report, it was either today or yesterday, maybe it was a few days before that, but I saw it today, and they're showing a little bit more than 30% of the searches are resulting in clicks, and that data was from SEMrush. Europe is looking very similar to the US, but in essence, 0 clicks, has been here for a long time. This is nothing new. According to Danny Sullivan from Google, who's the search liaison, Google has continually driven more traffic each and every single year to websites than the previous year. In other words, even though there's more 0-click searches, keep in mind there's more and more people who are using Google each year, especially because they're improving the experience, generally speaking, which has caused more traffic to be driven to websites than the previous years. And we're getting a lot of changes with AI, right? When we look at the SGE box, the AI overviews, also known, they rebranded and changed the name. It ends up resulting roughly to 1,200 pixels on average. That's quite a bit, which is pushing down a lot of other stuff below the fold. When we're looking at the data that we're seeing at our SMB division, NPA, that Matt's at and running, when we look at that division, we've actually seen a decrease in impressions to our clients, but an increase in overall clicks from search. So in other words, impressions may be going down slightly, but they're actually getting more traffic to their websites. And it's not only AI that's changing the way the SERPs are. If you look at this data here, you're seeing more images and more videos. Those two things are really, showing up way more in the search engine results than they were previously in prior years. And the reason Google is showcasing more results from images and videos is people tend to click on them. When we're looking at data on when a video is above the fold, typically the video is clicked on before anything else from what we're seeing. And Google isn't the only authority right now when it comes to search. You guys have already heard that Gen Z is using TikTok and Instagram. But what a lot of people don't know is when people are searching for questions, they're starting to use, places like ChatGPT. They're also starting to use places like social media. And when you look at the graph, you'll notice that the orange charts or the bars add up to more than 100%. And you may be wondering why. It's because people aren't just using one channel anymore. They're using multiple channels. Some people are using Google and ChatGPT and social media to perform searches. And you're going to see this trend continue going forward. So an increase in the other platforms doesn't necessarily mean a decrease in Google's traffic. Just like you may use TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Because you use TikTok now when you didn't use TikTok 6 years ago, it doesn't mean that's the death of Instagram or Facebook. When you look at Meta as a company, from the last report that they put out, they're still generating more revenue from Facebook than they are from Instagram, although Instagram's growing at a much faster pace. And you can also optimize for these social platforms and AI platforms, right? But specifically speaking about the AI platforms like ChatGPT, we did an analysis of the factors that are causing them to recommend a product, a service, a brand. And here are some of the factors that we've seen increase the probability that they'll recommend your product, your service, or your brand. So optimize it for them, right? Things like relevancy, brand mentions, reviews, they really matter. For example of reviews is, when you go on Amazon, you're probably not going to buy a product that has a 2-star out of 5 or 2 out of 5 star review. You want something that has like 4.5 stars out of 5. So if a lot of reviews online are showing that you're a 1 out of 5 stars, why would they recommend you? So what does all this mean for you? Well, yes, there's things that are changing and you got to adapt, but there's also strategies and tactics that have been proven and have worked for a long time, and they continually work moving forward. What Google really wants is helpful content. So when someone does a search, at the end of the day, they want to make sure that the information that they're showing them, the web page that they're presenting in front of this user, is helpful. If it's not helpful, they don't care too much. That's the biggest thing. If the content isn't helpful, why would they want to show it? And that's something that you really need to keep in mind when you're creating content and information out there. If you also want to try to rig the game and take shortcuts, that's not going to work well either. If you look at the March 2024 core update, right, they reduce unhelpful content, irrelevant, unoriginal content, and they're pretty much optimizing for giving users what they really want. If they feel your content is really outdated, just think of it this way. Would you rather read a 3-year-old article or something that's 3 weeks old? Right? Would you rather read AI content that's filled with fluff and maybe spam, or something that's written for you that's more useful and helps you solve your problem? Just think about that when you're creating content and try to rank. Think long term, not short term. And before I pass it over, you got to make sure that you include experience, expertise, authority, and trust. This right here separates your content from AI. When we are surveying people on the neilpatel.com website, majority of marketers are using AI to create content, more than 60-70%. The big thing that you can include in your content that AI struggles to is EAT. Make sure you include this within your content.
All right. So yeah, let's jump in. So today we're going to be covering 7 essential SEO strategies that are going to help boost your organic visibility. I think the best part about this is you're going to notice that a lot of these strategies are fairly evergreen. These are strategies that we've been employing ourselves over several years to the Neil Patel blog and to thousands of campaigns that we manage across all of our agencies. And we're excited to bring these strategies to you today. So the first one we're going to cover is pruning and cropping. And this is something that I don't believe is spoken about enough in the content marketing world, because with the advent of helpful content updates and so much more content hitting the internet than ever before due to AI, I think we're going to start hearing a lot more about pruning and cropping of your content. So when it comes to Google, I think the biggest thing we're starting to notice is less can be more. And pages that have poor content can affect the performance of your entire website. And Neil kind of mentioned this just a few moments ago about outdated content. If you're running a blog or a news media outlet or anything along those lines, and you have old events still up that are no longer relevant, those types of pages could be hurting the overall performance of your website. And here's a snippet from Google last year about the helpful content update. Any content, not just unhelpful content, on sites determined to have relatively high amounts of unhelpful content overall is less likely to perform well in search, assuming there is other content elsewhere from the web that's better to display. For this reason, removing unhelpful content could help the rankings of your other content. So what this means for you is the longer that you continue to leave poor or outdated or low quality content on your website, the more you may be hurting your rankings in the long term. And the biggest thing you need to start thinking about is leveraging the right tools to audit your website and find some of those underperforming pages. And one of the best ways you could do that is by leveraging tools like Ubersuggest. And the way you could go about it is by popping in your domain, sifting through all the different pages on your website and trying to locate pages that have pretty much 0 visits and 0 backlinks, because those should be some quick identifiers for you to let you know that this content really isn't indexing well. Nobody's linking to it because they're just not finding it authoritative enough. And there's no traffic visiting those pages. And there can be a lot of reasons why traffic isn't visiting it, but those can be some quick wins in identifying pages that Google may just find irrelevant or that your audience may find low quality.
Okay, so moving on to merging. So merging content. Well, what is merging content? Essentially, if you have multiple related pages, then you can combine them to a single and often more comprehensive piece. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, reading through some of Neil's archives of tweets, I came across one kind of quite interesting fact that what Neil did earlier in the year is he merged or deleted 12% of the content on one of his blogs. And this actually had an uptake of an increase in 19% of SEO traffic. So what can we learn from that? Well, we often hear Google talking about high quality content. Well, sometimes less is often more. So let's have a look at when we should be merging content. Well, one of the main reasons we'll merge content is to avoid keyword cannibalization. So if you have multiple pages targeting the same keyword, you might think that this will increase your odds of ranking for that keyword, but really the opposite is true. This is an example of keyword cannibalization. It's also confusing to search engines. They won't know which page to rank, or at least not be confident which page to rank. And it also has some consequences as well. So, one of Google's sub-algorithms is PageRank, and pages need PageRank to rank. And also, so what tends to happen with keyword cannibalization is some of the pages which are kind of considered redundant will receive PageRank because they're being linked to internally. They'll also have some crawl budget allocated to them. So this means that the more important pages will receive less attention. So what does this mean for you? Well, let's kind of have a look at when cannibalization happens. So if you think of multiple URLs where they target the same keywords, but also the same intent, this is keyword cannibalization. So for example, if you wanted to rank, let's say for the keyword weight sensors, and you had 2 informational pages for that keyword, then you'd kind of run into some problems. And that's an example. So the key task, or one of the key tasks as an SEO that you'll want to look out for, essentially is this overlap. So where you can see that there are multiple URLs that do target the same keywords with the same intent. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to look at 2 ways that you can identify such pages. The first is using a paid tool, and then we'll also look at a free way as well. So most premium paid tools will allow you to do this. We're just going to look at an example using SEMrush. So essentially, the first thing you do is pop in your website's URL. You then export your organic keywords, let's say into a spreadsheet. Then in the keywords column, so in this table, that's the left column, You'll sort it alphabetically, and then we'll be looking for the ranked URL, which we can see in the fourth column. And we can see there are two keyword A's, and these are and there are pages that are different, URL 1 and URL 2. So this is an example potentially of keyword cannibalization. So what we would want to do is we would want to review each of those ranked pages, check whether the search intent is the same. And if it is, we'd want to ask ourselves, do we want to consolidate these pages and merge them into one page? Or perhaps we just want to cut and delete one of the pages. Okay, so if you are looking for I guess, a quick and easy way and a free way, what we can do is we can just hop onto Google. We'll use the Google site command in your website address. So in this case, we'll use one of Neil's. So we'll say site:/npdigital.com, and then we'll put the keyword in that we want to check to see if there's any cannibalization issues. So I'll put content order in quotes. Now, what Google does is it suggests pages that it thinks are relevant for that keyword. And it's our job then to check to see if the search intent is the same for that keyword. If it is, potentially that could be a candidate for content merging. Now, just one little bonus for you guys here. You may have noticed if you've used this command before that Google has taken away the number of results count that it shows in Google. But you can get that back. If you click on tools, you will get the count of how many results there are. Okay, so how do we fix keyword cannibalization issues? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's content merging. So let's imagine you have 3 pages that all target the same keyword and serve the same intent. Well, what you can do is you can review each page, check to see whether there actually is some valuable content on each page. And then if there is, you can consolidate them all to the one single page. So this will typically be the page that ranks the highest. If possible, you'll use that URL, and then you'll redirect the other URLs to that single page, which has merged the content to make it a more comprehensive piece.
Awesome. So the next strategy we want to chat about is meta tag A/B testing. And this is something that has been around for several years. I know back in the day, it was a little bit more difficult to do this effectively because there weren't as many tools out there to create the same experience as you would in like a CRO A/B test, where you can kind of diversify your traffic and show traffic A, this headline, traffic B, that headline. But there's a lot more stuff out there nowadays. But let's first start off with what are meta tags, just in case some individuals aren't familiar with all 3 versions of the meta tags. So first, you have your title tag. This is one of the important ranking factors still to this day. This helps search engines understand your content, and it also helps capture user attention and interest when a user ends up on a SERP. Now, your meta description is the piece of text that falls underneath that title tag. Now, arguably, over the last few years, meta descriptions have lost their value as an actual ranking factor. So they don't directly affect rankings per se, but they definitely help search engines and users understand what that page is about before they click and go to it. So therefore, it can impact your rankings through click-through rate. The third factor of meta tags are meta keywords. Now, these are objects that have been pretty much obsolete for at least a decade now. They're still a part of a website's HTML structure, so they still exist, but they're not really a ranking factor. They're not really an area where you need to focus on optimizing that much. I would definitely focus more on your title tags, meta descriptions, and even your header tags. So what this means for you when it comes to A/B testing. So what we're talking about here is putting time and energy into creating effective meta titles and meta descriptions that will impact your rankings directly and indirectly. So as you can see with the example at the top, this is a sort of badly optimized meta description and title tag. As you can see here, the title tag is truncated. So you see American Heart Association recommendations for and then you see the ... So that shows you that it hasn't been optimized. They're not paying attention to the pixel width. They're not paying attention to certain keyword optimizations within that title tag. And then you'll also notice that the meta description is also truncated. And this is most likely because they didn't set a meta description. So Google probably just indexed a few sentences on their own to try and at least put something there for the users, so it's not just a blank space. But below that, what you can see is a well-optimized title tag and meta description where you have keywords. They've paid attention to the pixel width, so nothing's being truncated. And as you can see here, the title tag reads workout routines database, 1,000 plus free workout plans. And then within the meta description, to determine if this is a page I would like to go to or not based on the context, largest range of free workout routines available: muscle building, fat loss, strength, abs, women's fitness, and more. So as you can see, these are two different examples of title tags and meta descriptions. What you can do with this type of information is start figuring out ways to test different titles and descriptions for some of your key pages to see if you can start boosting not only your impressions, but more your clicks. So tools like Search Pilot can help you create these A/B tests in a matter of minutes. You want to focus on appealing to human readers, not just search engines, because at the end of the day, what you're optimizing for is a human who's going to go to Google, type in a query, come upon the organic blue links, and determine between you and somebody else around you. So you want to make sure you're using compelling content, you're using items that would make somebody want to come to your page. And the most important part with this is sticking to your character limits. Like I said on the previous slide, your title tags are anywhere between 50 to 65 characters, and your meta descriptions are anywhere between 155 to 160 characters. There are SERPs that will kind of extend this a tiny bit, but if you can stick to these two parameters, more often than not, your title tags and meta descriptions will not be truncated on the SERP.
Okay, so moving on to updating old content. So as the name suggests, this is really just modifying existing content. Now, if we use an analogy of, let's say, a garden, you need to take regular care of it for it to stay vibrant. And this is sort of similar with content. You need to take care of it for your content to stay relevant. And, for some keywords, freshness is particularly important as well. So let's look at some statistics now. And sadly, for some reason, when it comes to SEO, we often take a set and forget approach. So if we look at this, we've got 7.5 million blog posts are published each day, yet only 38% of bloggers are updating old articles. So there's definitely a mismatch there. And I'd say there's a missed opportunity. So if you think about the hours that it takes to create a blog post, now it may only take, half an hour or maybe an hour to update that post, but essentially you're nurturing your content to be more evergreen, and it's going to stand a better test of time. Okay, so I guess it's definitely a costly mistake if you're not updating your content. And you can get a massive organic traffic boost, as much as 106% by updating your content. But here's a really surprising statistic. So I was really surprised when I came across this. This is by NP Digital. So when you look at the top organic ranking sites, they spend over twice as much time updating content as opposed to creating new content. So 31.1% creating new content and 68.9% updating content. So my question to you guys is, what proportion of your time do you spend creating new content and updating content? Okay, so what should you do? Well, you definitely want to be updating your content. So at least once a year, ideally every quarter. There's lots of cool tools out there like Uber Suggest, where essentially you can see what pages are ranking well on Google, maybe ranking on pages 1 and 2 on Google. And then you can kind of review the search intent of those pages, see how they align with the top ranked pages, and kind of look for any updates that you can make that way. Some additional things you can do, you might want to remove time references from blog posts, for example. You might want to make your content more visual, maybe videos, images, or even infographics. If you're doing keyword research, then it's a good opportunity to work in new keywords. Maybe search demand has changed. You might want to restructure content to make it easier to skim. Okay, so yeah, this is a really interesting test that Hrefs put together. So I think the YouTube video came out about 2 months ago on the Hrefs YouTube channel. And they went through basically viral SEO video tips on TikTok. And actually, the only one that got proven to be a success through Hrefs tips was actually from Neil. And it was about updating content. So essentially, what they did is they jumped into Google Search Console. They followed Neil's advice. They compared the traffic in the last 28 days to the 28 days the previous year. And then they did a filter by click difference. So essentially, they were looking for the biggest losers in terms of clicks from the last month compared to the previous month. So once they found an article, I think it was down about 20,000 clicks, something like that. And what they found was within 2 weeks, they updated the content, and within 2 weeks, the organic traffic had actually doubled, and they'd moved from the second page in Google to the first page in Google. So that really is a quick win. Like if you're looking for one opportunity to really sort of try, tomorrow, review content that isn't performing as well now as it was, say, 12 months ago.
Amazing. So yeah, let's chat about link building, because this is still one of the top factors for Google. I know there was the big data breach that occurred a few weeks ago that had everybody in a buzz. And it was very surprising for a lot of us to see that although there have been so many algorithm updates over the past year about helpful content updates, adding the extra E to the EEAT, there have been so many focus points on content. Link building is still a really big ranking factor for Google because it still shows Google who's authoritative online. But there's specific ways you have to go about it because they know people are gaming the system and they want to see different tactics within link building. So here's the question everybody still has. Are links an SEO ranking factor? And from Gary Iles, who is the search analyst from Google, he mentioned, I think they are important, but I think people overestimate the importance of links. I don't agree it is in the top 3. It hasn't been for some time. But links still do matter. And here's what Google says about links in relation to AI-powered search. So SGE, or the AI overview section of the SERP now, places even more emphasis on producing informative responses that are corroborated by reliable sources. And what that basically points to is you have a higher chance of showing up in the AI overview section, not only if you were doing one of the best jobs of answering that query, but also if that piece of content or that page or that blog or that video, whatever it is that's answering the AI overview query, if it has a good number of authoritative or corroborated links pointing to it, it's going to increase the chances of showing up in that AI overview section. In 2024, SEMrush reported all of their ranking signals. They tend to do this every year. And what they discovered was pretty baffling. Like over 8 of the top 20 ranking signals were related to backlinks in some way, shape, or form. And what that shows us is that based out of all the other ranking factors that they tend to test, over 40% are still related to something in regards to backlinks. So authority is still a massive signal for Google. So here's a quick example of some work that we did for one of our clients at NP Digital. This is for UTI, Universal Technical Institute. And the goal when they came to us was they wanted to reclaim a lot of their lost organic search visibility with the help of digital PR and content optimization. So we partnered with UTI's content team. We ideated, we developed, and launched over 200 new local pages with optimized schema markup that were rich with relevant imagery, video embeds, and other features that matched user intent for each query. We also put a heavy emphasis on building them more local links and also doubling down on their citations because we knew that there was going to be a large aspect of local to this type of a campaign. So the solution we put together is our digital PR team developed authority to the new pages with placements on Chamber of Commerce websites in local markets. We reached out to newspaper outlets and other local authoritative domains, and we garnered a total of over 400 citations or placements that went live, all averaging 60 plus in domain authority. So as you can tell, these were hyper local, hyper authoritative websites that all had above a 60 DA authority. And based on those efforts over several months of work, we helped them increase over 411% in year over year organic search sessions for new program expansion efforts. We increased over 18% year over year. After the previous year, they saw a double-digit loss. And we also helped increase rankings in Google by over 982 additional rankings. So that was up 20% year over year from the amount of new keywords they saw ranking within Google from the previous year. So as you can tell, based on this strategy we put together for UTI, it was not only a combination of helpful content, great videos, a lot of dynamic content, but we helped bolster it with that local authority and those citations to help give it enough signals from Google that UTI was kind of turning the ship around. So what you should do based on this information is continue to try your best to prioritize quality over quantity. So a lot of people, they may look at their competition through a tool like Ubersuggest or Ahrefs or SEMrush, and they may realize, wow, my competitors have 20,000 backlinks. How am I going to catch up to them? Let me just go buy 20,000 backlinks to match them. And as you can see, based on this scale, if you start building a lot of irrelevant links, non-authoritative links, low quality links, it's not going to do you much good. If anything, it could hurt your rankings more than help them. What you need to focus on is just double down on a few highly authoritative websites that are talking highly about your brand or your product or your service, that are linking to you with purpose. So their anchor text really does drive you to the right pages, or it leads people to the best possible experience that they can have on your website, as opposed to just always going to your homepage. So a pro tip that we have for you today is content helps build links, but free tools actually help build links even faster. And if you've been listening to Neil, he's talked about this for years. One of the best things he ever did was acquire Ubersuggest and turn that into an asset that can help a lot of different brands start linking back to us because they're referencing or referring people to use this great tool. So one of the best ways you can put this into action today is you can go to Code Canyon. There's a lot of other types of websites that are competitors or similar to Code Canyon, but you can buy tools off of Code Canyon that are fairly inexpensive and only need a little bit of tweaking or rebranding to turn them into an asset for your brand. Or you can even use ChatGPT to help you create your own custom GPTs. That's another way to be found and to be linked to in today's day and age.
Okay, so yeah, let's move on to creating a great UX, so a great user experience. Now, if you've been following SEO, you probably heard about the Google algorithm leak that happened earlier in the year. So it's the first time that we really got our hands on how Google's algorithm worked. Now, it's not completely been proven as definitive that it is a leak from Google, but many believe it is. And the one thing that kind of jumped out at me, which many SEOs believed was happening for years, is that user interactions within search results really do matter. So if we think about good UX, Essentially, what Google is looking at is looking for signals that when someone visits your page, they are getting closer, or hopefully you are satisfying their search intent. So they're going to be sticking around on your page for a while. They might click on to other pages. They might not even return back to Google search results, or they return back a little bit later. So that length of time, we call it dwell time. Now, bad UX is kind of the opposite. Like, they've actually just pogo sticked from your page back to the search results. And again, Google is using these signals to kind of work out whether the content that you're delivering is actually helping satisfy what the user is actually after. Okay, so let's look at some factors that affect UX. So page speed is an obvious one. The faster a page loads, particularly on mobile, that's going to have a good user experience. So you can hop on to Page Speed Insights, check out what your core web vital metrics are, and hopefully optimize those to improve your page speed. One thing I found works really well, particularly for core web vitals, is delaying or deferring JavaScript, if you can do that. Site architecture and navigation. Now, I'm sure you've been on a website where, you know, maybe the content was quite interesting, but the navigation was just really poor and you couldn't find related content. So that's an example of bad UX. When it comes to layout and design, you know, if you like simplicity and beautiful sites, then you probably would like the experience on an Apple site or a similar site. So think about your target audience, whether it should be professional, and getting a really good design. When it comes to content structure and quality, well, Google has its search quality rater guidelines document, over 150 pages, where they educate you essentially what they're looking for when it comes to quality. A little bit of a dry read to go through that all, but there are lots of tips in there. Neil mentioned EAT earlier. Expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Also, there's needs met. Are you satisfying the needs of your users? Google's been mobile first for quite a while now. I think that rollout has finished relatively recently, although it started several years ago. But again, you'd be surprised how often people don't look at their own websites on a mobile phone. Maybe they'll look at the homepage, but perhaps the contact page doesn't render very well, or perhaps, blog posts are slightly off sync. Now, when it comes to accessibility, now there are standards. Some standards are very strict, but there are some basic standards that we should all be following. Adding alt text to images, like, it does add a little bit of relevancy to the page for SEO, but there are people who are visually impaired and they rely on this alt text when they are, following screen readers. So what else can you do? Well, I would say the number one thing that you can do for user experience is to fulfill the search intent. And when we think of UX, we tend to think of the UX of what's happening on your content, on your pages. But really, when we're fulfilling the search intent, we have to think of the complete UX from Google search results, and these are Google's users, to your web pages. And rather than thinking of how can we convert them into leads and sales, the first step should be how can we fulfill the search intent? And then secondary, how can we actually convert them into conversions and sales? Now, there are lots of tools out there as well that can help you improve the user experience, with the help of tools like Crazy Egg. So, you may be looking at heat maps. And, that's something that you can kind of set a goal. What is the conversion? What is the thing that you want people to do? And then look at heat maps and various features to see if it's driving you towards that goal.
All right, keyword research. This is one that has obviously stood the test of time. It's the foundation of search engines. It's how people search. So let's figure out what we could do from a keyword perspective. So keywords remain the missing link between inquiry and content. And you need to start leveraging tools in different manners because there's so many different tools out there nowadays. Obviously, we've talked about the SEO tools like Ubersuggest, SEMrush, Ahrefs, but you also have tools like Answer the Public and others that can help you really understand the connection between different keywords, different queries, different objects. And what you want to start focusing on is just begin with indicating what the user's intent may be. So when you think about your brand, your product, your service, really dive into your customer personas and understand what are the pain points that they're facing? What are the questions that they may have most frequently? And that can start helping you understand what background are they coming from? What is going to be their intent when they come to Google? You want to make sure you're reaching the right audience based on that type of information. And once you understand that, you can start targeting the right keywords that will help you drive the right traffic. So search volume isn't everything. And what that basically means is that you're going to find that a lot of keywords that are less competitive, they have less traffic, but they are easier to rank for. And what we've also noticed after running campaigns for over a decade, over thousands and thousands of campaigns, is that when you start to target long tail, low competitive, but also low search volume keywords, is that your conversion rates may start to increase over time. Because if somebody's spending the time to type in this long query, they're really feeling some sort of a pain point and they're pretty close to probably converting. They're probably at that bottom area of the funnel. So what you want to focus on here is question-based searches. You also want to blend in some newer searches. And over time, what you're going to notice is that your impressions are going to start to increase, your clicks are going to start to increase, and your conversion rates are going to start to increase. And I think for a lot of us, we're focused on that ROI, we're focused on that conversion. And by bringing more of the right type of traffic to our websites, it's going to hit your bottom dollar a whole lot better. So as I said here, what you should be focusing on in years past and still to this day are long tail keywords. It's what's going to help separate you from some of the biggest competitors that are in your space. I mean, if you're in the e-com space, it's almost unavoidable to go up against Amazon or even Walmart nowadays, now that Walmart also has a marketplace. But what you can do to circumvent some of that is go after longer tail keywords. And as you can see on the chart here to the right, it's breaking down SEO traffic by keyword length. And what you'll notice is that there is kind of a bell curve here where 3 to 6 words in a query seems to generate by far the most amount of traffic, coming in at around 57%. So the pro tip that we want to give, I was mentioning before, Answer the Public. You can scan this QR code right here. It'll take you straight to the Answer the Public website. You can get started within a matter of minutes on better understanding the strings and the relationships between different questions, different queries, different ways that people may be searching for topics within your space. So use Answer the Public to find these long tail queries and questions that your audience is interested in and start building content around it. Or going back to some of our first tips, go back and refresh or prune content that may be either targeting or not targeting some of these phrases that you may find on Answer the Public.
Okay, so let's move on to making SEO work for you. So let's start with growing a blog with SEO. Now, it's kind of like a time-proven, evergreen strategy, and it's a great way to improve your SEO. So a blog increases your chances of ranking higher in search by 434%, according to Opt-in Monster. Yet 15.72% of online marketers describe content creation as their most effective SEO tactic. So the one thing that I would say that follows on from what Matt was discussing with long tail keywords is that a blog lends itself very well to long tail keywords. If we think of long tail keywords, they maybe account for, 70% of all keywords. But yet most businesses tend to start by targeting transactional content. So they're missing out on a real big group of keywords. Now, another thing that's really quite cool with blogs as well is um, they tend to be a little bit less biased, a little less salesy, so they earn backlinks and they earn trust from search engines and customers. Okay, but we do know that, blogs are hyper competitive. There are 600 million of them. This is a stat from Master Blogging in 2023. But what we can say is that informational keywords and long tail keywords, which blogs are very good at targeting, they tend to be less competitive when compared to transactional keywords. So there are opportunities there as well. Okay, so how can you get your blog to stand out? Well, focus on quality over quantity. If we remember when at the start of this presentation, one of the things I mentioned was Neil cut back 12% of his content on his blog. And in doing so, he was focusing more on quality over quantity. Google has a search quality raters guidelines, which is over 150 pages, where they run through how you can do that, how you can focus on quality over quantity. 34% of bloggers say that updating content produces strong results. So update old blog articles. Now, it's easy to get in the habit of what are we going to be doing that's new this month, or what are we going to be doing that's new that we haven't done before. But as we looked at earlier, from a Hrefs perspective, they spent, I don't know, maybe they spent an hour or two updating an old blog post, and they doubled their traffic. Okay, so what else can you do? Well, you'll obviously want to start with a really strong headline. But after you have an engaging headline, or even just talking a little bit more about the headline, like you'll want to study people who are very good at blogging. Like Neil's had a lot of success in this field. So what type of headlines are working for Neil? Or maybe there's someone in your industry that's very good at blogging. There might be formulas or structures that they're using. Are those formulas or structures that you could use? But when it actually comes to the body of the content, now that introduction, it is your chance to hook the reader in. It needs to pique their interest. Maybe you ask a question. Maybe you come up with something that's controversial. But in terms of the heading, usually there is some kind of promise in that heading, and your use of subheadings can help deliver on that promise. So think about how you use your subheadings. Great if you can include keywords, but how can you deliver on the promise? And when it comes to the end of blog posts, you might want to wrap up with a conclusion. Maybe there's a question you want to ask your audience, or maybe there's a specific call to action, CTA. Maybe it's as simple as asking to leave a comment, or maybe there's an exercise that you could lead the reader to. Now, if you have comments turned on, it's a great way to respond to them as quickly as possible. You'll be building your community. It will increase people coming back and checking out your blog. And, maybe you could piggyback on trending topics. So if you're in the SEO world and, maybe there's been another algorithm leak about Google in the future, if you piggyback on that, when it comes out and you add a really interesting new angle to it, then it's probably going to do well on social media. It's probably going to do well on SEO. So it's a good thing to do for your blog. And of course, when you finish your blog post, your job isn't done there. You'll want to think about how you can promote your post, whether it's an email newsletter, on social media, or if it's a particularly really good post, you might want to see who you know on social media. Maybe there's influencers who you can kind of pre-tell them about the content that you've created.
Yeah, so let's pick up the baton on social media and figure out how social media to this day impacts SEO. So, as we all can tell, based on some of the stats that Neil was showing at the beginning, and also just understanding our own behaviors as they've changed over the years, as TikTok, Instagram, more of these social media platforms have started to include more search behavioral type of features, and also the advent of ChatGPT and AI bots. It's really just changed the landscape of how we search and what we perceive a search engine to be. So based on Neiman Lab, they did a study and they determined that almost 40% of Gen Z is using TikTok and Instagram for search instead of Google. And now a lot of that could be skewed, could not be skewed. I think a lot of those searches may be related to local, but there's a lot of other ways that Gen Z is finding their information. And what we can see here is based on the year 2000 versus this year in 2024, you'll see how search engines have kind of lost some of that market share when it comes to finding the answer you're looking for. You'll see back in the year 2000, over 98% were using search engines, as opposed to this year, only about 61%. But then you'll see the adverse when it comes to social media and AI chatbots. So back in the year 2000, I mean, the only social media platform we had back then was maybe MySpace. And that definitely wasn't a search engine. So you had around 1% of people using social media as a search engine tool, where now about 17% of the population is using it. And then AI chatbots, with the explosion of GPT about a year and a half to 2 years ago, that's now taken about 30% of the market share. So the search trends are definitely changing. But organic social media reach is still a challenge for people, because there's a level of authenticity, there's a level of consistency, there's just a lot that needs to go into social media to really make it work as a channel for your brand. Organic social media traffic on average is declining by almost 2% per quarter. 73% of social media views and engagements happen within the first 24 hours. So you really have to be on top of your game and consistently publishing content, because as you can see here, 73% of the traffic you're going to receive is going to come in that first 24 hours. And after that, it's really going to tail off. 98% of posts saw only a few or no more views and reach after 48 hours. So there's one big difference with the 2% of the posts that continuously got traffic and views, some even 30 days after the content was published. So as we can see based on the previous slide, most of the content that's produced on social media, on YouTube, after 24 to 48 hours, you're not really going to see much more traction on it. But there is something that you can work on that'll help start to bring that traffic to your content. So the first thing is trying to target topics and create content around evergreen information. The second thing is the content that was produced that was on popular topics at that moment. So if you know SEO, you have a huge advantage on social media marketing, because these are the same types of tactics we've been using on blog posts, on creating content on your website, your web copy, your product descriptions. You always want to focus on evergreen topics within your industry. And you always want to have these periodic drop-ins of popular topics based on things that may be going on in the real world. So applying some of those same tactics to not only your SEO campaigns, but also your social media campaigns can really prove to be beneficial. And you also want to make sure that you're taking advantage of platform tools. So over the years, you've seen Google, YouTube, TikTok, Meta, Instagram invest a lot of money into creating like insights or analytic platforms within their business side of their social media platform. So make sure you're spending time just digging around in there. You can get ideas on popular topics that are trending right now that you could start creating content around. You can get ideas of different types of categories or groups that you could be joining. You can see analytic trends. You can even see exact videos or use templates that other people may be using. So make sure you're taking advantage of these. And one of the biggest things we want to emphasize here is the focus that we've seen on low fidelity or lo-fi content. And what lo-fi basically means is, rather than going hi-fi, which is like high resolution, high production, lots of money invested into that type of video or content, lo-fi seems to generate over 34% more likes and 18.5% more comments on average. And I think that goes back to just the authenticity that people are looking for in social media nowadays. So more of your DIY videos, more of those types of homegrown, homemade types of content seem to perform a lot better on Google or on social media. So leverage social media across all stages of the funnel. So within the top of the funnel, you want to make sure you're focusing on posting short form videos that are educating people on industry, products, and services. Within the middle of the funnel, you want to make sure that you're creating educational content that also mentions your products and services or different aspects of your brand. Create dedicated content pieces around specific issues that may be occurring in a timely manner, and promote your webinars and ebooks or any other forms of content marketing that you may be producing. And then at the bottom of the funnel, you want to make sure you're going live and pitching your product, ideally in an educational way, and you're creating content that sells without being pushy.
So Matt, let's skip the key takeaway slide because I know we're running out of time, and let's get into questions. We do have another webinar coming up. You can register for that by just scanning the QR code. It's called Search Engine Rewind 2024, where we pretty much break down everything that's happening, what the future is looking like. Let's go next slide. And if you want help with your SEO just in general, you can scan the QR code or just go to npdigital.com, where we can help you with your SEO, whether it's on Google, getting ChatGPT to recommend your product, services, or even TikTok or any other platform out there. So let's dive into some questions.
All right. Hello, everyone. Colin here from Neil's marketing team. Good stuff, everyone. We're running low on time, and there's lots of questions. I'm going to pick some of the ones that multiple people were asking. And Matt, maybe Neil, all. A lot of questions around blog refreshing. I need some clarity on the old blog posts. Are you saying that we simply update the existing blog post by editing and adding to it? Or do you mean that we publish a new blog post with the same content reworked? So can we just, and then there were questions about the date and time stamp, like do we leave the original date stamp and then say below that, you know, edited on certain date, etc. So Matt, maybe you can elaborate on some of those questions because I think you spoke to that.
No, for sure. So it all depends on the type of content you're targeting, right? So if we're talking about an evergreen post, then I would recommend leaving the live URL the same. Do not create a new page and then redirect the old URL to the new URL. Like, you still want to keep as much authority from that original URL active, and that URL is already indexed. So don't mess around with that aspect. But definitely go through and update that content based on several factors. Are there any pieces of information that are just completely outdated nowadays? Even though it's evergreen content, are there maybe tactics or comments or price points or products that have just changed over time? Maybe technology's improved, so you want to kind of update some of that, or maybe a new area of focus has come about or new statistics have come about. So go ahead and maybe trim some of those sentences down and start adding fresh new information based on what may be occurring in your industry. Now, when it comes to timestamps and things like that, I mean, I've seen a lot of different iterations. I've seen blogs that have done it really well by just kind of removing the old timestamp and putting the new one there. I've seen them do the opposite, where they leave the old one and show the new edited timestamp to show their audience and also really show Google that they're taking the time and periodically coming back to this content and updating it. So I think that was more of a preference there. I don't know, Neil, do you have a differing view on the timestamp?
Yeah, I've done quite a bit of tests on the timestamp stuff. I don't know if you have, Joe, either, but I haven't really seen any increase or decrease by, you know, in most cases, when you update the content, you're updating the timestamp as well. But whether it's updating the timestamp or leaving the old timestamp, but then putting on the content updated at this day, we haven't seen too much of a change. Google's pretty sophisticated. They know when a page is being updated or not. The funny thing is, when it comes to updating content, some people try to play games where they just update it too frequently and they're just updating a sentence or here. That doesn't really do anything. You actually need to make the content better if you're going to update it. If you can't make the content better, just don't waste your time updating it, and don't obsess too much about worrying about things like the timestamp.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think it's also important to know, you know, we're not just talking about refreshing words. I think you really need to understand, who's ranking for the terms that you're really going after. And sometimes it's maybe reformatting as well. So less words and more imagery based on the query. So there's a lot that goes into that for sure. Another big one that we kept getting, and maybe this is everybody, how does Google determine if content is helpful? I don't know if we can just elaborate a little bit more on EEAT, because I think at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. But multiple folks asked that same question. Could maybe start with Neil and then go to Matt.
Sure. So the biggest thing to know is Google testified this in some legal case or court. They said, we don't truly understand documents, or I'm paraphrasing here, we don't understand documents, we fake it. They're looking at a lot of user signals, time on site, bounce rate, keep people clicking the back button. It's a lot of factors like that versus them actually being able to comprehend a page. You know, things like, are people linking to it? Are they sharing? Are they leaving comments? Like, all these things give them signals on if people find a page helpful or not.
Yeah. I would also add that obviously Google is indexing, if you just give one specific industry, right? Like, let's just say HVAC. And if Google is indexing thousands of different websites in the HVAC space, and they're noticing trends between all of them, that they're all mentioning something very similar when it comes to like your furnace system. And if you are a website that's saying something that's opposite or different, it's going to see that either you're not knowledgeable or you're trying to game the system. So kind of identifying strings between multiple brands, and then over time understanding and kind of Google gaining its own expertise on a topic, that's another way that they can help understand, like, okay, in the industry, this is common practice, this is common knowledge, by indexing all those websites over time. The other thing I would add to that too is just like the expertise factor, right? So if you have any sort of accreditation, master's degree, PhD in certain spaces, if you have certifications or anything like that, that can also help point Google towards the fact that you are an expert. You did receive some higher level of education on this topic. And if you find creative ways to weave that into your actual content, that'll help. I know author pages and bio pages have kind of been devalued over the years, but they can still prove to be helpful in some capacity. But obviously, it's the words you're bringing into that content that helps build the expertise.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And Joe, maybe these ones are for you. There were, or Matt or anybody, there were a couple questions when we got into the meta tag section. Should my title tag and my blog page title be the same or different? Thoughts there? And then there was a follow-up. What's your view on using a call to action within the meta description, given the limited character space that we have? Any thoughts there before we wrap?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the main heading of the page, so that I guess the main title of the blog post, should it be the same as the actual title tag? Well, you typically want them to be different, particularly if you have done keyword research. So your meta title tag, it tends to be a little bit more keyword driven, whereas your main heading for the post tends to be a bit more engagement driven. So the two can be the same, and often are if you haven't really done keyword research. But I would say if you have done the research, and it usually does pay to make them different. In terms of a call to action in the meta description, you certainly can do that, but I'd be careful not to make it too strong, the call to action, because it might just look like a Google Ads, where they tend to have stronger call to actions.
Good
Cool.
point.
Well, everyone, appreciate the time. I know we're running late on it. Appreciate you guys staying. If you ever need any help, check us out at npdigital.com. DMI also has some amazing courses on marketing in general and great education. Check them out as well. It's a great resource. We appreciate you guys staying. I know we ran 11 minutes late, but thank you for being here. Take care, everyone.
Have a good one.
Bye all. Thanks so much. Happy 4th.
My name is Neil Patel, and I help companies generate more revenue through digital marketing. Entrepreneur Magazine said I was the #1 marketer in the world, And they also said I created one of the 100 most brilliant companies. I started my first website at the age of 16. I took all the money that I earned from working at an amusement park and I paid a marketing firm. The marketing firm provided no results, and I quickly learned that I wasn't alone. Out of my frustration and from being broke, I had no choice but to learn marketing. My first client was a power supply manufacturer. I helped them generate another $25 million in sales, and from that point, I realized the power of marketing. I helped everyone that I could, and I built my reputation by being honest and over-delivering. I've helped companies like Google, NBC, Viacom, General Motors, eBay, but nothing's more satisfying than helping small business owners succeed. I founded 4 multi-million-dollar companies, and I've learned all the mistakes that you should avoid. I've written about them on Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc., Fast Company, and even on my own blogs. It's so awesome to know that colleges from all around the world are teaching my material in their classroom. Over the years, I've received awards from the President of the United States, the House of Representatives, and the United Nations. People believe marketing is expensive and difficult. Fortunately, that's not true. There is a formula. Even if you don't have a technical bone in your body, you can get results. And my mission is to share this formula with you.